Hey, everybody, welcome to the Journey Big podcast. So glad you're with us. I hope it's been a great week for you. And again, my favorite thing to do is to include friends that have a unique voice in my life. I think they might have an impact on yours as well. And today we've got my friend Bill Lokey. Bill and I met at a place called Onsite out in Nashville, Tennessee. He headed up their counseling, and Sweet Maria had said she wanted to go to this place called Onsite. And I said, have a great time. I ain't going. Then we had a little bit of an intervention with all my friends and said, like, dude, you need to go. So I went and met Bill, and Bill was the guy leading a bunch of the stuff there. And I remember Bill would do these meditations, like you'd wake up early in the morning and I'd be thinking, man, where's the waffles and coffee? But then Bill would lead us through this long meditation. We're walking through a field, and then you see a flower, and then there's a cabin in the distance, but then we walk over to the fence. I'm like, dude, just get to the cabin. So Bill has have been fighting this courageous battle with cancer, and I just thought he would have some unique perspectives to give us. This guy is fully alive, and he's going to outlive all of us. So I just want you to hear from Bill. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, I got diagnosed just from a regular blood test, going to see my doctor with prostate cancer. And he first said, well, but prostate cancer is usually a really slow growing thing. We just watch it. It's not that big of a deal. When they got the biopsy back, he was like, I'm really sorry to tell you, this is fastest kind of growing cancer there is. We got to do something fast. And so for the past 5 years, I've been going through chemotherapies and clinical trials and oral therapies and radiation therapies and all kinds of different things. It metastasized to the bone very, very quickly after surgery, didn't get it all. And then it's been metastatic bone cancer for, the last 4.5 years. Battling that, and then just about Christmas time, found out it had spread to the lining of my brain. So now it's the lining of the brain cancer, which of course makes it even more difficult to battle. So we're kind of in the place now. The doctors were telling me, let's see, about 1.5 years ago, they first told me you've got 3 to 6 months to live. And so that didn't happen. Came around the next Christmas, and they told me the same thing. So I laugh and say, well, as long as we keep planning stuff, I keep staying alive. So far, that seems to be working for me.
Never bet against Bill. I just think that there's so much of life to be lived, and so much more life for you to live. And you're showing up every day. And I just hope that we are as well. I just thought it would be uniquely interesting for our friends to hear from you as you're approaching towards the end of life. There feels like there's more factors pointing in that direction.
Well, there really are, because what I've gone through, not only the physical battle, but I've really gone through a lot of growth with my relationship with God and with Jesus, that as long as I'm staying with him in his presence, then I'm fine. They tell me what might happen might be one way now, since my platelets keep dropping so low, is that it may be one night I go to bed and I don't wake up here. But when I think about waking up and I'm looking at the eyes of Jesus, I'm like, man, I ain't missing out on nothing. I mean, I'm not going to miss out on anything at all if I open my eyes and I'm seeing Jesus, and walking into Eden and beginning to enjoy that. My main concern really is the grief that Laurie, my wife, will be going through. That's something that we grieve daily with each other in our relationship. But the fear of death is, there is no death. I believe truly that if you believe in Jesus, we move from life to life with a capital L. And there's not this dark place. And you and I both, Bob, experienced that experience of moving out in your out near your house on the water. And when we stepped from the boat to the dock, and the meaning that meant, that was the symbolism of what death would be like. It's just moving from one reality to a more real reality.
Yeah, will you tell us about that, Bill? We spent some time together up in Canada, and you arrived on a big boat, like at the dock, along with a lot of other people. Tell us about what that's like, because we were talking amongst ourselves about what do you think it'll be like to go from here to heaven? And you described it in that way. Tell us a little bit about that experience so we can get some context.
When we came, my wife and I came to your to that retreat at your house out in British Columbia, and we had to go across these deep waterways, and you could see the dock where we were going to be landing. Probably we were about a mile or a half mile away. And it was interesting, just during that time in my life, my mom had died not long ago, and I was talking to Laurie about, will I be afraid of death when it comes? Will it seem like this darkness? Will it seem like this big gulf that I'm not sure what to do with? And I was really starting to go, I don't want to be afraid of death. And as we were riding on the boat, just discussing that, we started listening to all the people that are up on the dock, and they're cheering and they're yelling and they're singing and there's music playing and there's celebration. And I just looked up there and the tears started to roll down my eyes. And I looked at my wife and I said, this is what it's going to look like. It's just going to be moving from one reality to the next, just from life to life, stepping from the boat over to the dock. And suddenly I was just filled with this joy to realize it's not going to be surreal. It's not going to be or some sort of dream state. It's what reality really is. And so moving into that was just beautiful. So we stepped onto the dock, and everybody's hugging as we come up on the dock, and we start walking down the path where these beautiful lush trees are. And even that, I was like, and it's going to be just as real as this reality is. And it helped me in this growth of that I don't have to be afraid of anything. God is walking with us, and it's his presence that's with us. And, one of the things I think that most people deal with and struggle, it may not be with cancer. Mine's with cancer. Others may be other elements and things that are taking place in their life that they don't know what to do with. And one of the things you and I had a correspondence about just recently, where I was writing down some of my thoughts, most recent. And, I've prayed ever since I had kids, they're all adults now. Ever since I had kids, I always prayed that they would be safe, that nothing would happen to them, that they would be protected. And I prayed that with all my heart. I still pray that. However, I also began to realize that when I look back through when I got cancer, and I began to think, why, God, are you not healing? What I began to realize was when my kids would come home from schools, maybe elementary school, junior high, and let's say there was this one, for instance, my oldest son had a guy that was friends and started making fun of him. And man, I wanted to go tell that kid off or his dad or whatever. But if I had done that to try to protect them, I would have taken my son out of the place of learning, what do I do in this situation? How am I to be? And so what I found was it was much better relationally if he and I talked. I asked him, how would he like to deal with it? If he asked me any questions, I could, and we could talk about it. But what he did is he saw me be a human. He saw me be his father. He saw me struggle with wanting to do one thing and having to let him take care of it. And I watched that happen over and over again with my kids and myself. And so what they got to see was me being their father, me being their dad. And what I began to realize is I pray for my kids, and I still do, and I pray for me, and I still do, that if I missed out on the part with Papa, as I want to call him, God, if I missed out on that relational struggle of how do I deal with this, I would miss out on the real important relationship with Jesus and with my Father. And if, as long as I have the presence of Jesus, as long as I have the presence of God with me, I can't be better off than that. That's the best thing in the world, to be able to experience that kind of relationship with him. And so I think that's a part of what comes with our struggles, comes with also the presence of God that is far better than just even physical healing.
Yeah. I think of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people that you've, in your private practice or the time with Onsite, that you've touched with words as people have gone through some really difficult things. I know when our lodge burned down, Maria just beat a path to you guys. She's like, I'm headed Onsite. You can come if you want, but I am headed there. And I remember you guys saying in really tender way, you remember you came and got me in the room. I was dealing with my grief by pulling new building permits and buying heavy equipment.
Yeah.
And then you said, hey, there's something really important happening in the other room you need to be part of. And just guiding and encouraging, but not overstepping. And then as Maria was having some breakthroughs about what got kind of knocked loose for her in this that she'd been dealing with for a long time, that kind of tenderness, had you come in there to try to fix it rather than introduce it. So I love that idea of influence, that sometimes we think of influencers as somebody who has a lot of Twitter followers, but that idea of not trying to control, but to influence, and then say, to your point, what is my role in this? What is my role supposed to be? Am I supposed to be a protector? Am I supposed to be a comforter? Am I supposed to be like, what is it? And I think of you not as a guide, but a Sherpa. The Sherpa like just tells the person, what hill do you want to go up? And mostly the Sherpa just tells you what you don't need to take to get there.
Yeah.
You take that out of your backpack. A guide makes all the meals for you, picks the trails, says, this is where we're going. This is when we arrive. They give you an itinerary. A Sherpa just says, let me break trail for you. Tell me which way we're going. Let me help you get there faster. I'll string the ropes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So when I really think about your role in people's lives, speak to us about that, because you've helped so many people about like kind of navigating their way forward. They have a friend, they have difficulties in their own life. Bring some of that wisdom that comes from accumulating it for your entire life.
Well, because it's changed a little bit. About 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess 3 years ago, I retired from Onsite, and my wife and I began to do intensives, these 2 and 3 day long intensives with couples or individuals, really helping them see, how do I trust Jesus instead of the same old strategies, that keep me stuck. And so the beginning of this year, when the cancer continued to get worse and things are not as easy as they were, I don't get to always work with those intensives with my wife, Laurie. She's a trauma therapist who does amazing, amazing work on these intensives.
Yes, she does.
But I said, what is my goal going to be this year? Because I know I needed to have a goal rather than just sitting back and watching things happen around me. And one of those I realized was I wanted to see if I could encourage people that are usually the encouragers, to find pastors, leaders, other people that really need encouraging themselves, because it's a pretty lonely road a lot of times when you're the encourager of others. And it's been funny. There's this little coffee shop nearby that's become my favorite place to go, which I go almost every morning, and I will meet with different people. And I love it because I guess I'm old enough now, they see me as a grandfather or something, that they'll let me just ask the questions about, so what is it that you really, really want from Jesus? What is it that you're really desiring, but you don't feel like you have time or room for it yourself. And they'll really let themselves drop into that with me and explore some of those questions. The very thing that happened to Peter when he stepped down into the water. He really wanted to walk to Jesus, and yet the fear hit him and overwhelmed him for a little while. But Jesus was there to pick him up and to pull him up and didn't chastise him. It may be that sometimes he would say, I don't understand your lack of faith, but people like Peter and me are human, and we get scared at times. But I love that place of meeting with people who are just, we're just the same. It's you and me. We're the same. What is it you yearn for, you desire for? And oftentimes you'll really begin to hear people's fears. But when we really understand that Jesus is with me and that God is really with me, something that some people may not believe this, but once in a while we hear these things from God. And probably 3 months ago or so, I was driving down the road and I started a prayer that I do sometimes just while I'm driving. And I said, "Dear Father," and I immediately heard him say, "I want you to call me Papa." Mm. And I'd read the book The Shack, and I'd read some other books that say that, but it became so emotionally meaningful to me that God would not only just say, "Yes, I am your Abba Father," but I want you to use language that means something to you. And to say the word Papa as Abba Father, but to hear him say, "I want you to call me that." Oh my goodness, the tears came down again. And I was like, the Father of the universe, of the galaxies, wants me to call him Papa, this endearing name of God. And it's just changed some things for me again, to be able to have that kind of relationship where I know he cares very, very deeply for me, rather than something not being exactly right. And I just think if that's what we're building our relationship, God, with towards that kind of presence, oh man, doesn't matter what we're going through, we are going to have so much more than if we're just trying to do what's right.
Yeah. And sometimes surrounding yourselves as a really practical level with some safe voices. You're one of the important and safe voices in my life. We've run to you and Laurie in the past. We will continue to. And for people listening, to find some safe voices, they may be some friends if faith is a big deal for you. Maybe some safe voices will be people who faith is a big deal for them. There might be some people that if you look in different categories of your life, this is a really important voice in my life. And so gather these people and then hold them close. As you've counseled so many people, isolation becomes is a big theme for some people. You become isolated because there's some shame, there's some uncertainty, ambiguity is not your friend. And so you go like, I'm just going to take everybody out of the room, and not realizing you just sucked all the oxygen out of the room too. And so what's a word of advice of people that are going through a hard time? You've decided for you, this is really difficult. And yet you and Laurie have just decided we're going to keep living. We're going to, I mean, you're jumping on a podcast with me and doing all kinds of other stuff. You're probably going to be playing racquetball at noon. But what about people that are feeling a little bit isolated right now? There's like the way everybody knows them, but then there's also another version of them that just wants to be like, they just feel like they're the only person in the room.
Yeah. There's so many, and I don't mean intentional secrets, but secrets in people's lives that they're dealing with loneliness. I also say that there are people that have worked and really hard at trying to get something to work out right in their life. And after a while, they just said, just forget it. I can't do that. And they put it on a shelf somewhere and say, I can't get that done. Or or a disappointment or a hurt with one of their children or an adult child, or, all these different things that we sometimes just give up on. And that's why I say it's not just cancer. It may be the loneliness of realizing I don't think I can do the very thing that I really hoped would be my calling or what I was successful at. And so we stick those things on a shelf and just say, well, maybe someday. And then at some point we find we've just given up completely on that. And I'm just wondering, for those people that feel that way also, what would it mean to have someone else in your life that you helped, that you talked with, but encouraged you to, what would it be like to take that thing down off the shelf and to attempt at, let me keep working at this thing rather than giving up? Because loneliness, boy, it can really rule our lives. But if we can be with and find one or two other people, maybe a group of other people that we can begin to share what that disappointment's like, a lot of the times the disappointment, the loneliness begins to drop and to come down, and you begin to find some encouragement of doing the very thing that you long to do, but we just ran out of knowing how to do it and we got discouraged.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a part of it, is if we ever try to do things alone, we're almost always going to get disappointed and we're going to feel like a failure. But if we can do that with other people who have similarities, we may find all kinds of encouragement that we just didn't know was there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. You
love
find
that.
out what it's connected to. You just say that this thing that's discouraging me is really connected to this bigger thing that has become a theme in my life. And then you say, so how do I deal with that disappointment? And for some people, it's deferral. They just say, I'm just going to defer it to another day. I'll get to it another day, but that another day never comes.
And let me just say real quickly,
Yeah.
and I think one of the magical things about it, not really magical, is that you talked about the beginning of yours and my relationship. But then as my cancer has come around, it's also switched, and you become a great encourager for me. And so that's some of the beauty of relationship. It's not just, oh, I'm afraid to tell this person because now they'll know this pain in my life. Well, one time for a while, one person's encouraging the other one, and then later on, that person's encouraging the first person, and it becomes this great relational thing that we just don't experience when we're trying to do it all by ourselves. And
Yeah.
boy, in our country, we want to do things by ourselves.
Yeah. I'm thinking of if you have honest, safe relationships, how there's a couple rivers that are famous because the direction of the river and the way it flows shifts. And it's when the tide comes in on the nearby ocean, then the river will change directions. And I'm like thinking wow, that's pretty rich for metaphors.
Yeah.
That as these things come in, then a relationship shifts and there'll be a time, but somehow you establish that baseline. So why not establish a baseline right now, wherever you are, if you're listening, with some people to just say, even if things are just going swimmingly, just say, let's just get super real with each other. And then what we'll do is build on that so that we have a baseline of that. So when we really need it and the river, the tide comes in and the river shifting, there'll be somebody around me that can help out.
Yeah.
Somebody can speak into that. Not when you're both panicked, but when you've just logged some time together.
Yeah. And it's during those times when I found my most richness with friends, or how it's even deepened during those conversations. And I just love that. It doesn't mean that all of my fear is gone. They say that, how it might happen pretty soon, even for me, because of my low platelets, how I might go out. But if I just focus on that, you can get pretty frozen. But when I realized the true relationship with God, the true relationship with friends, but especially that one with God, just to be able to go, I really don't have things to be afraid of because of the way he loves me. But like I said, but the reality is we also have to look at, like for my wife, that's going to be a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be
with you, buddy.
There's going to be a struggle with, I know, the grieving. But one of the things that we've done in our relationship, I think, well, is that we grieve now together.
Mm-hmm.
We're not waiting for me to be gone from this earth. We allow ourselves to grieve with each other now, which looks like crying sometimes, which looks like laughing sometimes, which looks like a host of things. But then when I'm leaving here, Laurie, I think will be able to grieve still for a while, but she won't have saved it all up and kept it inside until that time. Yeah. And then she can have memories of us holding each other now, mm-hmm. and those endearing kind of memories, because we're being truthful and honest with each other rather than just trying to hold on to that and not talk about it. Because as hard as it is to talk, it will make it harder for her later on. And knowing that really she's going to join me later on and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm thinking about why I really wanted to have this conversation, not only to let more people know about you and Laurie and the work that you've done in our life, but importantly, there's a lot of people that aren't having a discussion towards the ends of life. And we find out somebody is passed, and then when somebody's passed, what we are left with is legacy. That's what you and I have a chance to leave. And if you hear a song and it brings you right back to 1972, and the polyester shirt you're wearing, or a smell, and you go like, oh, I remember exactly where chestnuts, and you'll think I was by the River Thames and they were roasting chestnuts. Think of this. In the scriptures, they talk about being the aroma of Christ. So just like this is what remains. And so it will be what that pillow smells like. It's like what that experience, and you and Laurie heard a song. And so what I want us to do, whether you are in relative health or not, is think about this kind of legacy. Let's build in the things that are going to outlast us and focus on those. And nobody bets against you, Bill. Some people know this story, but about 8 months when you're writing a book, 8 months before you actually publish the book, they say it's time to dedicate the book. And so I was writing a book at the time, and we had a discussion just right before then about the boat to the dock. And so I said, this book is dedicated to my buddy, Bill, because you had told me you had like 2 weeks to live. And so I thought, well, with 8 months of lead time, we're good here. And so dedicated to my buddy Bill. You've stepped from the boat to the dock. Welcome ashore, Bill. And then you didn't die. Like, buddy, you almost promised me. And so I remember needing to give the book to you. And this pro tip here, never make a dedication in the past tense before.
That's right. Yeah. It just doesn't work out that way.
Yes, I'm going to write another book, and I'm just going to say, Bill, I know you're still with us, and I'm dedicating this to you anyway.
Well, Bill, it's been funny because we have just for a while when they gave me that short time limit, I was like, I really felt this sense of I just need to tell everybody I'm about to die, pull back, wait on the shelf for it to happen. And I did for a little while, and then I realized, only when we are alive does God transform our lives. God doesn't transform dead people. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on the living. And we just kept making plans, and things kept happening. And so as far as talking about what you're talking, Laurie finally said, well, I'd like for us to do this program, this one program that we did once on our own that would be kind of a legacy, called Resilient Love. And so we're doing that again in a couple of months. But, that's another one of those things where I go, I may not be around for very long, but to feel like you have a legacy of something that you put into place that Laurie and some friends can continue carrying on. It's just also so exciting to go, the legacy is not about me. The legacy is for other people. And that's what's exciting about that. But yeah, you know, some people have said, well, I really did think you'd be gone by now. And it's like, you know, you just never know when God's timing is. It's up
Not
to
me.
him.
Not me
Not
anymore.
me.
I just you and I've got a plan this summer for you to go from the boat to the dock, but from the dock right back to the boat afterwards.
That would be interesting,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
no, we cannot have that alternate ending.
That'd be
We're going to bring
scary.
you ashore. We're putting you back on the boat.
Yeah, that might be too scary.
But man, I just love you. Thank you for impacting my family, for
Oh,
this
Bob.
legacy of love, and spending some time just encouraging those of us, whether they're stuck in traffic or out on a jog. I just want you to hear from courageous people, like Bill, that are fighting a courageous battle, but doing it with this heart. I'm not sad about that. I'm going to be filleted when you're not present where we can talk like this. That's going to gut me, I'll tell you. However, you're just living so much life right now. And so I want to live it right up to the end with you. And thanks for sharing some of your knowledge and your heart with us, buddy. I love you.
Bob, and I just want to say thank you, not only for your writings, but what you actually do in life, all the people that you've helped with the schools and different things. But nothing like that is more important than also who you really are as a person. And I love you. So thank you.
Well, you guys have been listening to the Dream Big podcast. And I hope if you just pause, just think about Bill, thank God for his life, and then keep track of him, because he and Laurie are just going to keep living and doing this. I hope this is a clarion call to you to not defer, to find a couple friends to draw close where you can keep it real. And then think about, what is it that you're carrying that you don't need to carry? Be like that Sherpa Bill has been to me, to start kind of taking those things out and then find a couple people you trust to say, where are we going from here? All right, you guys, blessings on you. Have a great week.